get 10 minutes if you have a group of 2, and 8 minutes if you are alone. And I'll let you know about a minute before it's done. First up is Soneet, and it is called Synthesis of Members of the AN+1 BN X3N+1 homologous series using the flux growth method.
Good morning. My name is Soneet, and today I'm going to be giving a presentation on crystal synthesis, and more specifically on the ongoing 5413 project in the Chan lab. For the audience's knowledge, 5413 refers to the stoichiometry of the elements in the desired phase. Before anyone goes to sleep, I would like to ask all of you to think about your daily activities. In these daily activities, how many times do you use your phone? On average, Americans use their phones 80 times per day. I know that all of you use your phones for either communication or work daily. I would like to tell you, if this is the case, crystals have impacted your life in a way you might not even know. Inside every phone's chip, there is a crystalline wafer that is a semiconductor, and the circuits are etched into this. The semiconducting properties of this wafer allow the phone to function properly. Just imagine, without the study of crystals, your phone would not be the convenience it is to you today. Crystals are the unseen aspect to many of the technologies we use today. And as we get to know more and more about crystals, new innovations will be made in this growing era of technology. I'm sure all of you are intrigued by my long explanation as to why you should care about crystal growth. However, let me stop speculating and let me go into how we make crystals in the Chan lab. The process starts with stoichiometry in order to determine the mass of the reagents needed in order to produce the desired phase. These reagents are then arc melted in order to remove impurities and create a homogeneous mixture in case that multiple reactions need to be run. If powder is used in massing out the reagents, then arc melting cannot be done because powder cannot be arc melted. The reagents are then put into a crucible along with the flux and sealed in a silica tube in order to prevent the incorporation of oxygen into the desired phase. To elaborate, a flux is what the reagents dissolve into in order to create the crystals. The silica tube is then put into a furnace where the reagents are allowed to dissolve into the flux and create the supersaturated solution. Finally, the silica tube is slow cooled in order to create the crystals inside the flux. But the cooling is stopped before the melting point of the flux so that centrifuging can be done in order to remove the flux off the crystals. Sometimes centrifuging does not remove all the flux off the crystals, in which case etching needs to be done in order to remove the excess flux. Once the crystals come out of the crucible, more analysis can be done using X-ray diffraction. To emphasize, one must first do powder diffraction to see what one has created. This is where one crushes the sample up into a powder and puts it into a powder diffractometer, as seen on the left. And the powder diffractometer gives all the different diffraction directions of the lattice. These diffraction directions are turned into peaks of max constructive interference in a graph. And this graph is referenced with known graphs in a database in order to see what one has formed. If a desired phase is formed, one can move on to single crystal diffraction, in which a single crystal is put into the instrument, and the instrument gives out an area of electron densities which can be used to determine the positions of the atoms in the crystal. Many of you may be confused when I'm talking about X-ray diffraction, so let me explain exactly what it is. X-ray diffraction is where X-rays are fired upon a crystal and they diffract into patterns, and these patterns can be analyzed for data. This is done using a rotating arm that fires X-rays at the crystal. There are two main types of X-ray diffraction: powder diffraction and single crystal diffraction. In powder diffraction, the sample is crushed up into a powder before getting put in the instrument. But in single crystal diffraction, a single crystal of the sample is taken and put into the instrument so that the X-rays can be fired at the layers of atoms found in the single crystal, as seen in the diagram above. After the structure of the crystal is known, one can perform tests for magnetism, conductivity, and other properties depending on why the crystal was synthesized in the first place. These different crystals can be used for different things based on their respective properties. The critics of crystal growth may ask, what is the point of synthesizing these pretty rocks and then analyzing them? However, when one looks at the future implications of crystals, the answer is obvious. As the world progresses, new innovations need to be made in order to keep advancing quality of life for everyone. Crystals are the building blocks of these innovations. An example of a new finding in the solid-state field is topological insulators. These are insulators on the inside, but conductors on the outside. These have a variety of applications in the electronics field. While I was working in the Chan lab, I worked to synthesize many different compounds to investigate the properties of the AN+1 BN X3N+1 homologous series. However, I played the biggest role in the synthesizing of the 5413 crystal, and this the 5413 refers to Ce5CO4Ge13. As seen in the table, many different variables were changed, attempting to create the 5413 phase, including whether the reagents were arc melted, the fluxes used, and the heating profile. On the right side of the table, you can see the results, but I will go into more depth on that. So it was determined that arc melting the reagents before putting them in the crucible forms a more stable 113 phase instead of the 5413 phase. It was also determined that the centrifuging temperature did not matter as long as it's below 815 degrees Celsius. In conclusion, I would like to say that crystal growth is an extremely important part of research that will allow for many innovations to be made. I would like to give a special thanks to both Ashley and Justin for teaching me the intricacies of crystal growth, Daniel for showing me that research can also be fun, Abby for lighting up the lab with her personality, and Dr. Chan for taking me in as a mentor and allowing me to expand my knowledge in both physics and chemistry. And as a final word, I would like to say, never forget the unsung heroes that let you live the life you lead. Crystals. Thank you.